daily soccer podcast with the Global Sports Podcast Network.
Your body is unique, and Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bioniq, the world's most personalized supplements. Bioniq provide 100% tailor-made supplements designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimize your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN 2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bioniq. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Liverpool podcast, brought to you by the Global Sports Podcast Network. The international break is over, so all eyes are on the weekend's fixtures as the Premier League returns. The Reds are away to newly promoted Burnley. It's a Sunday 2 p.m. kickoff UK time. That is 9 a.m. Eastern time in the United States. I'm in the company of our resident football coach, Irby White. How's it going, Irby?
Yeah, good. Just enjoying a nice gloomy Thursday here at the beach, but ready for, like you said, the fixtures to get back up and going after the long international break.
Well, it's a gloomy day here in the UK as well, and I think I'd rather have a gloomy day at the beach as opposed to a gloomy day in England as we approach winter. But the international break is over, and we've had players who've had minutes, have got minutes under their belt, and I think what we'll do is we'll talk about some of those players that have played over the international break, see how that might impact Arne Slot's team selection over the next few weeks. Obviously, we'll go through a predicted lineup and a predicted score as well for the weekend. And there's also a couple of kind of news items that have broken this week regarding the Premier League, some teams in the Premier League. And that could have an impact on Liverpool. So we might kind of touch on that as well. So let's start with some of the players that are featured over the international break. I'm going to start with Alexander Isak, Irby, because obviously he's our kind of marquee signing, I guess, for the summer transfer window that's just concluded. And £125 million. He hasn't kicked a football in anger this season. He hasn't had a pre-season. And that could be something that's a factor in the next few weeks and months as we look ahead to, what should be, and we're all hoping is going to be a long season for Liverpool. So he came on as a substitute in Sweden's 2-0 win over Kosovo. He played around about 20 minutes. I mean, how important is it for Liverpool and or obviously for Isak that he's got some competitive minutes under his belt this season?
And no disrespect to Kosovo either. I mean, but those are that's kind of a team that you'd want to face, I guess, maybe an early preseason test in his own right. We talked about it last week on the episode that the Sweden training camp and international window was an opportunity for him to kind of just get those minutes, get going. He hadn't, like you said, he hasn't had a preseason, hasn't played since May, and everything I've seen from, the clips, the training clips from Sweden, the training clips with us, he looked pretty sharp compared to a player who hasn't played for 4 or 5 months. But it's very important for him to get up and going quickly. Matches are coming thick and thin, especially with, the League Cup right around the corner, Champions League matches coming up, rapidly. And so we're going to need him, as we've kind of talked about with our forward options. And I don't want to spoil like our predicted lineups too soon, but I don't think he'll start Sunday. But I have a feeling he could probably come on and play a part, whether it's a win, a loss, or a draw. Hopefully a win. I think it's important for Slot to give him, at least 15, 20 minutes with his new teammates in the Premier League, because the Premier League, Burnley, it's just a different caliber compared to an international game against Kosovo. So he needs to get up and going quickly. Everything I've seen in training, the clips yesterday that went up from our socials looked sharp. It was against some younger guys, but I think he's just really ready to get going. So, and I think he's proven, and he's eager to show everybody that he's ready to go. That 3-4 month hiatus, won't phase him.
Yeah, it's a funny one because he's not had a pre-season, but he does know the Premier League. He's not coming in new to the Premier League, right? He's not coming in from some overseas league, and he's got to maybe adapt to the Premier League. He's got to find his pace with his new teammates. But I'm wondering if there's a difference between a Slot pre-season and a Klopp pre-season. It seems that under Jurgen Klopp, you had to have that pre-season. Otherwise, you weren't going to play immediately, or it would take time for you to get kind of bedded into that team. And maybe that was a reflection of, how intense the Jurgen Klopp system was, right? Whereas, and you saw that with Andy Robertson when he first started at Liverpool. It took him quite a long time to actually get into the team to get a starting position. Whereas, Arne Slot, he signs Kirkes, bang, straight away, he's starting. And a lot of the new players, Florian Wirtz, Ekitike, they're all thrown in after a Arne Slot pre-season. So, do you think that is a factor that maybe an Arne Slot pre-season isn't going to be as grueling as a Jurgen Klopp one?
Yeah, and I think we've all kind of seen and read and heard the comparisons to Slot and Klopp, over the last 18 months now, that just, a lot of things aren't changing, but a lot of things did change. I think, if this was Klopp and it was this Isak's first couple of games coming up and he was just thrown straight in, I'd fear that he would get injured because of the running, and the pressing, and the back pressing, and the work off the ball that he would have had to have done. And so, we're obviously a little bit more measured under Slot, a little bit more, I don't want to say pragmatic, but just a little bit more calm, especially out of possession. And so I think that'll play a factor. Like you said, the quality of player in Alexander Isak, second in the Golden Boot race last year, right? I don't want to say you just throw him straight in when he's fully fit, but we would, I think, us supporters, and I think neutral fans out there would all think he's going to go straight into the team when he's ready, when he's fit, when he's firing. I don't think form will play a factor early on him going straight into the team. So I think once he's ready and he's up to speed and he's shown in training and in the the cameos that he's going to play a part in these next couple of weeks, when it's time, when the manager feels it's time, when the fitness team feels it's time, medical team feels it's time, that they feel it's safe, I think he'll go straight into the team and be ready to go. And I'm optimistic that he's not going to miss a beat. I have a feeling he's going to hit the ground running fairly quick. And I don't know if that's just sheer optimism from me, or just because I'm a Liverpool supporter, you want him to do well, but just from everything I've seen from him in the Premier League the last 3 seasons, he's suited for the league, right? Mm-hmm. You've said that already, and he's been here for a couple of years, so I think he'll hit the ground running. And I just can't wait to see him play. It's been a long summer, the long summer saga. So we're for him
as well, right? It's been a long summer for him as well. And I take your point, and I think I agree. And I don't think it's just like a kind of wishful thinking that we want him to hit the ground running. Obviously, we all do. But I think that he will, just one, because he's just a quality player. He's just got that quality. And secondly, I think that, as I already mentioned, that he's used to the Premier League. But I think he'll just be so fired up now. He'll be so fired up to get involved with this team now, that I think that he will, hit the ground running. But the good thing is we've got Ekitike now as that kind of. I don't want to say backup, because I don't think that's going to be the case this season. I think it's going to be these guys are going to be rotated, and we'll see more of that as the cup competitions come in, like the League Cup and the Champions League. But let's talk about some of the other players. Ibrahima Konate. I didn't see the game, but judging by all the press reports in France, a commanding performance for France in their 2-1 win over Iceland. He's obviously got this contract situation in the background, and that's going to keep rumbling on. but it's good to see that he's coming back into form as well.
Yeah, and I guess what I saw surrounding Konate just on social media this week and those international games is that, players like Mbappe and Camavinga were talking to him about Real Madrid and stuff like that, and that there was a third contract proposal kind of denied from him, and that it's not that he doesn't want to be at Liverpool. He's just, he's very clear of the financial package that he's looking for. And so that's all the news that I saw around Konate this week. I know he had a good performance or two, but it was just the contract situation. Again, I mean, last year we obviously had it with Van Dijk and Salah and Trent. We don't need to go all into that again because, that was a long 12 months of talking about that. But it's just another star player in the spine of your team. You just don't want to be dealing with and answering these questions and asking these questions, among friends and supporters and hearing it, pundits talking about it for these next 6-7 months. Just wrap it up, get a bow on it, and give him that deal. Yeah, I just think he's a player we need to build around and build with Van Dijk. Yeah,
but for me, I've just got a feeling it's going one way. It's going the Trent way. I don't know if you saw the reports from the Athletics Real Madrid reporter Mario Cortegano, who's normally quite, he's well in with Real Madrid. He's a well-sourced journalist, and he says that Liverpool's centre back is admired behind the scenes at Madrid. He's one of Europe's elite defenders, and his contract ends next summer. He goes on to believe, and this is I think the significant part of his statement. He said Madrid believe Konate would like to play for them, but we don't know how hard Liverpool are pushing for an extension. He also says that Konate could be playing both sides in negotiations until he chooses the option that suits him best. Which, look, that's not a great surprise. I think in any kind of contract situation, you want to try and negotiate the best package. But there's another question I've got for you, Irby. Real Madrid seem to be, there's a clear strategy, right, over the last few seasons where they've almost said, right, you know what, we're Real Madrid. We don't need to spend £100 million to lure this player to our club. They will want to play for us. And so let's just wait until their contract runs down, and then we'll just snap them up free. Now, that's great. That's great for the club because they're saving a transfer fee, and it's much more sustainable for them. I'm just looking at this from a player's perspective, and I'm wondering if that's a situation you really want to go down. Because look at Trent Alexander-Arnold. He's now gone for free. Okay. And there doesn't seem to be that incentive for Real Madrid to think, you know what, we've paid £100 million for this player and we've got to play him. Okay. It's just like, well, he came for free. If you don't perform, you're on the bench. Okay. Whereas with Liverpool, we spent 115 on Wirtz, and we've got to make that work now. We've got to play him into form. And I'm just thinking, is this something that players have got to think about? That, look, if it doesn't work out for me in the first few games, I could quite easily get benched. And Real Madrid are thinking, well, we got him for nothing. And if we have to sell him after 2 years, we can command a transfer fee. So it's not as, I don't think it's as attractive for a player as it may seem, at the beginning.
I think there's parts of that I agree with, and I think there's parts of it where I'd say it could come maybe on a player-for-player instance or basis, or a positional basis. Like I think we all kind of looked at the right back position for Madrid this summer, or even just months prior to all these rumors circulating with Trent before he inevitably signed there, was Carvajal's getting up there, Vasquez is no longer there, that they needed their right back for the next 6-7 years. And I guess the thing with Trent is that there was always, even though we supported him, there was always questions about his defending and sometimes his work rate, or mentally sometimes what was going on. And so maybe I don't want to bash him too much after what happened, but it's just maybe he's settling in and there's a little bit of fragility there. It is Madrid, right? It is Madrid, and it's a tough place to go, and the scrutiny can be. I
There's
mean,
no
it can
hiding
be.
place.
There's no hiding at all. It can be intense. I mean, it's not just on the pitch, off the pitch. You're going to hear about it. Um, I would say in terms of Konate, I look at the center back positions over at in Madrid, and just Rudiger's getting up there.
Yeah.
David Alaba has had his injury concerns. They've got that
Mm,
young Araujo, I believe it is.
mm,
So you would think just his stature, his ability when
yeah.
Konate's at his peak, when he's playing alongside Van Dijk, we've seen him, putting in good performances with France. Just internally, I would think he should slot straight into that Madrid 11. He should,
Yeah.
as long as he's fit.
Yeah.
There might be some growing pains along the way, obviously, as we've seen with Trent. But I think it's more of a player for player basis. And I just think back to the strategy. And I got a question I wanted to ask: How soon into these contracts expiring do you think they're speaking or getting in touch with their
Oh,
agents? Because everyone knows that agents talk, right? We've seen
yeah.
that reports about Newcastle, tracking players like Voltmod and all these guys, and
Yeah.
Ekatike. They've been talking to them since they were 18, and same thing that we've had tabs on all these players too. So how soon, I guess, is the initial contact do you think that Madrid is making with the players? 18 months, 2 years, 2.5 years?
Yeah. I think too. I think. Look, we always say that football is a business, right? And football clubs now, because just because of the sheer numbers involved in terms of the financial turnovers, right? You've got to run it as a business, and so like any business, you have to have a pipeline. You've got to have a pipeline in terms of product, or in this case, in terms of players. And I think any sporting director, any sporting department worth their salt will be looking at their own roster of players and thinking, okay, 2 years down the line, Carvajal is going to be out. Some of these players who are like 30 plus are going to be out. And so who's on the list now for the next couple of years? And so I think 2 years is the time where kind of initial contact is made in terms of like, these are the players that we like, and no formal offers, but just look, we're interested, and let's monitor the situation. And because of Real Madrid's pull, they know that just that, even that initial interest may stop a player from signing a new contract, right? So I think 2 years, and I think that contact has clearly been made with Konate, and it just depends on whether Liverpool are going to come up with the numbers. And another factor that's got to be thought about is that Liverpool are clearly going through their own transition. And part of that transition is, one, bringing the average age of the squad down, which we've done significantly this summer. And secondly, bringing the wage bill down. And, we've got Trent off the wage bill, and, we've got players in, and, we've let players go. And I think once Mo and Virgil leave as well, that's going to bring the wage bill down as well. So I think all of these factors, for me, point towards Konate not getting the massive contract that he wants, and maybe us thinking, okay, mate, you want this, you're going to have to sign, with us on what we've offered you, or you just go and we just go and get Mark Gahey for free as well. And we've got Leone, and we'll buy another young centre-back as well. So I think Liverpool will play hardball on this. I don't think we're the kind of club that will get pushed around in terms of saying, look, unless you're a Salah or a Van Dijk, which are generational talents, we're not going to do that with everyone. We're not going to do that with Konate or other players. And so, yeah, I think that's the position on Konate. But as I said before, I think it's good to see him coming back to a bit of form. Szoboszlai, Kerkez, they both turned out for Hungary, albeit they lost narrowly against Portugal 3-2. Both Argentina and Brazil lost, but it looks like those two are going through anyway. But I think the most important thing for me was that Alexis McAllister got minutes, and then Florian Wirtz. Again, I didn't see the game, but I saw the goal. The free kick that he scored against Northern Ireland. And if you look at all the German reports, even before he put that free kick away, completely ran the game. And, I don't want to say that he's been disappointing. I think that a lot of the criticism has been unfair on Wirtz, but this can't do him any harm.
No, and I think, as you said, going away with your national team after 3 games, after the massive transfer fee, you've just finished your first preseason, the new club and a new country, right? And to get away with your international teammates, a lot of them they're obviously his friends, his mates. So to get to do that for 2 weeks is, especially for any new player like that, it doesn't do him any harm. Scoring a goal, having some good performances in there, I think it'll do him just kind of a world of good, help his confidence a little bit, even though it wasn't a Premier League match. We're still seeing him kind of, get up to pace in the league. We talked about, him suffering a cramp against Arsenal. That's, going to happen. He's getting used to the physicality and just the, the grueling nature of the Premier League that it's going to take. And so just a good little, it's not a break because you're still playing football, right? But yeah. It's just, sometimes you just need, for these new players, I think these international windows that are international players kind of need these just windows to just kind of, get away, see their international teammates, people that speak the same language as them, probably get to spend a little time with their family if they're not all moved in and settled in, because he's a young guy anyway, who knows if his family has come to Liverpool with him. And so I think that'll do him, some good, especially with the matches we've got coming up. The one thing I saw with Alexis McAllister was that the manager of Argentina said he's clearly not fit.
Yeah,
I don't know if you saw those quotes that he's not fit, but we're going to play him anyways. And it's just,
which is good for us.
It's good for us. And it's also scary for us because that's also why players can get hurt on these international breaks too. Well, if I'm not fully fit, but I get thrown in for my national team and have to play 90 minutes, because McAllister, he's obviously, Messi has been the face of Argentinian football for a decade plus, but he's one of those players for them that just, if you want to win another World Cup, if you want to win a Copa America,
100%,
you can't win it without Alexis McAllister. And so he obviously is going to play if he's able to walk on 2 feet. And so you're right. I think it will do him some good to get some minutes in him, because we sat him out the last 3-4 games after we secured the league against Tottenham, right?
Yeah.
And so, and he had a.
He's one of those players that there's certain players who, when they're not fit, they really look unfit. And McAllister, bless him, because he covers every blade of grass. If he's not 100% fit, he just looks shattered after 10 minutes,
especially to his standards of what he feels of himself and what he gives you on the pitch. Yeah.
And in much the same way, you're right. He's a linchpin player for Argentina, and he's become that for Liverpool as well in that midfield. You've got to have him. So I think it's really good that he's had minutes, and I think it's good that Wirtz has had a good performance and he scored a goal just to, give him that confidence as he comes back to Anfield. So look, it's time for a quick break. When we come back, we'll look ahead to the Burnley game at the weekend and some of the other fixtures that Liverpool have got their way for the month of September. Here at Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform. Zencastr came out the clear winner. With 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs, it's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr. Okay, next up for the Reds is Burnley, newly promoted Burnley, away at Turf Moor. Burnley are coming off the back of a narrow 3-2 loss at Old Trafford against Manchester United, which sees them sitting in, let's have a look at the Premier League table, 14th. 14th after 3 games, 3 points from a possible 9. Irby, I think they'll be delighted to finish in 14th come the end of the season, right? So, but Scott Parker is the manager now. He's not quite Sean Dyche, but he's definitely returned Burnley to a more kind of disciplined structure to their play. as opposed to under Vincent Kompany, they were a lot more flamboyant. Some would say maybe reckless in terms of their playing out from the back. But you still have to think that we're going to have too much for Burnley. But, we can't take any game for granted in the Premier League. But this is, particularly post-international break, I think Burnley will be looking at this game and thinking, of course, look, Liverpool favourites, Liverpool are champions, Liverpool are top of the league, but it's the first game back after international break. And maybe, just maybe, we can catch them when they're not quite at 100%.
And I think I just got to say, I'm delighted for so far Sunderland, Leeds, and Burnley. The way they've they're not in the bottom three to start the season. It's a long season. There's 36 games to 35 games to go. We don't want to. I personally don't want another season of 3 teams that come up, go back down. I think it's just good for the league. No affiliation to any of those clubs at all. When it comes to Burnley, we've seen just in years past when they were consistently in the Premier League, even though they were struggling, they were in these relegation battles. It's still a tough place to go at times. We've had some matches there where we've been comfortable. We've had some matches there where, it's just a real pain to deal with. And so when I look at this match, I think especially coming back after an international break, the first thing I look at is at least it's not in your time, a lunchtime kickoff. For us, it's 7:30 a.m. That's the first thing I looked for when I saw Burnley was at least it's not a lunchtime kickoff after an international break.
True.
That would have been my worst nightmare because we've had a few of those against teams like that. I'm hopeful that, like I said, Burnley can stay up, but it's just, we have to be ourselves, be ruthless and go into this game and just trying to assert our will. We've seen a little bit of these last 3 matches where it's taken late heroics from Chiesa, Rio, Szoboszlai. And I'm craving a match where it's just, we're up 2-0 at halftime and we see out the game. And don't let the opposition back in it. Get the clean sheet, do our business. I'm not asking for anything where we go and we put on a show and it's 5-6-0. It's not Anfield, right? It is a tough place to go. But I'm hopeful, like you said, that it's bit more measured. We go in there after the international break. We're feeling fresh. We know what the matches and the competitions that are coming up. Just go in there, put it into performance. Hopefully we can take off players like Salah and Ekitike after 60 minutes, maybe get Isak 25 to 30 and just see some of these new players maybe and see some young guys and just, I don't want to be too arrogant and stay focus on Atletico, but that will be in the back of his mind. It's in the back of all of our minds that we need to get out of this match unscathed. Hopefully 3-4-0 win and we can focus on Atletico Madrid.
Yeah, which makes this kind of predicted lineup an interesting one because it is straight after the international break and it's right before our first Champions League game against Atletico Madrid, which is, that's a massive game, established European powerhouse. So, does Arne Slot, does he just pick his strongest team for this game or does he have one eye on that midweek Champions League game?
I think he'll pick his most fit, strongest team. So I think it's obviously too soon for Frimpong to come back into it. He's one of those players I'm kind of mentioning. If we're in control, if we're 60 minutes in, 30 minutes to go, comfortable, maybe he can get back up to speed, play his 30 minutes. I think it'll be a pretty strong team. We might see maybe one rotational spot, possibly on the left wing. I'm not sure. I think it'll be as the strongest midfield possible, strongest back line possible. But I think the right back one is one we'll have to look at. Szoboszlai put in a heck of a performance against Arsenal, and so is that his way?
So we presume that Alisson is going to be in goal, and the back four does Konate and Van Dijk keep their places at obviously at centre back? So are we looking really at the fullback positions where there's going to be potential for? Because I'm thinking Connor Bradley could play this game, and also Andy Robertson could play because I think he's I think he's ideally suited to some of these away fixtures where
Yeah,
if there is any hint of a drop in standards or players thinking, oh, well, it's only Burnley, then you need someone like Andy Robertson, vice captain, vastly experienced, and he'll be the one that says, listen, guys, let's take this seriously.
exactly. And I think you said it with Andy Robertson. He was one I was going to bring up. I think he'll play one of the two matches, whether it's
Yeah.
Burnley or Atletico, because I think the same standards. This is not an Atletico preview podcast, but just in the back of my head, the same kind of standards need to be brought to Atletico Madrid. Even though it's at home, it's still Atletico Madrid. They've won the league a couple times over the last couple of years. They've been a contender. Is that a match for Kerkez or Robertson? I think we'll see a start from both of them, one of each of them in each game. And I think you're right about it. That it's Burnley, it's away, it's coming off the international break. I think it's a good match personally for Andy Robertson. I'd be happy to see either one, because Kerkez still needs to kind of find a little bit more measure and balance in his play. We've talked about him being a bit erratic and flying into tackles, trying to win everything. I think that'll settle down a little bit, but I think this is a good match for Robertson. And what you said about Connor Bradley too, I'm so excited to see him. I know we just signed Frimpong, and Szoboszlai has shown glimpses that he can do kind of that role in there, but just I think we're all ready to see Connor Bradley
100%.
just play match. Just defensively, we know how solid he is. He's very calm, very measured, calculated with the way he goes forward, right? He's I don't want to say he doesn't take a lot of risks, but he's very mature, I guess I would say, for his age, with his decision making with the ball, off the ball. And you're right about the outside backs. That's a good shout. Now I'm just kind of rethinking what my lineup would be if I were in Slot's position. But yeah, maybe Connor Bradley hasn't seen much time yet so far, or if any, right? I'm trying to recall.
No, not for Liverpool.
Yeah, so
does he
maybe
throw him in?
this is another thing where maybe we're up by a couple goals at 60 minutes, and you get him his game time because he's going to be needed as well.
He's going to be needed, yeah.
So I think you're right. That right back position is probably the one where we're probably going to be looking at, as we know it'll be Robertson or Kerkez on the left, right? So it's just what's going to happen on the right. Midfield, I mean, you have to assume it'll be Gravenberch, Wirtz, and McAllister. Whether McAllister can only give us a half or 60, we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
I think Ekitike, Salah up front, and then the left wing. I think the left wing is the one where maybe we could see. I'm not going to say it could be Rio, but who else could it be?
No Szoboszlai then.
No, I think he could be right back. I'm just wondering who it would be on the left if it's not Gakpo, because I don't think it's too soon to start. It's too soon to put Isak out there, or Ekitike.
I'd be surprised if he starts.
Yeah,
Isak. I would. I'm thinking Salah, Ekitike, and Gakpo.
Do you think there's a world where Rio gets a chance?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. I think unless we're 4-5-0 up, right, and then you think, you know what, take Gakpo off now because we've got Atletico on Wednesday. We don't want to risk any injuries. But I think if it's a normal game and they're like 1 or 2-0 up, then I think that I don't think Rio gets. I don't think he gets an appearance, on the weekend. But yeah, look, I'm going for Salah, Ekitike, and Gakpo, with the view that one of those guys, Ekitike or Gakpo, will make way for Isak, with maybe kind of 20, 25 minutes left to go, which I think will be great for Isak to get some minutes up. Let's go for a score prediction then.
I'm going to say 3-1.
I'm going for 3-0. I'm going 3-0, and I think it's going to be really. I think this is a really important game for us. I really do, because I think that one, it's straight after the international break, but I think that already we've kind of, we've set down a marker to the rest of the league with that win over Arsenal, and we're sitting top of the league now. And I just don't want any kind of slip-ups in these kinds of games. Fine, if you're playing against Chelsea or, even Manchester United. I know they're terrible at the moment, but they are our kind of, They're our kind of historic rivals, and so that's kind of a derby game, and so all the kind of form goes out the window. But when it's kind of teams like Burnley, you've just got to dispatch them. You've just got to go there, get the job done, and then just put the pressure on the rest of the league that they've got to catch us. And I just think that this is one of those games, and to get a clean sheet as well, I think will be really important. Just to we did that against Arsenal, carry that on so that defense, just gets used to being solid, as we were for most of the last season, because Atletico is going to be a tough game. Simeone is such a wily character, as their manager, and he's going to have some kind of plan. Atletico really broke our hearts a couple of seasons ago. When we were defending the Champions League, they knocked us out. So, they're not going to be afraid of coming to Anfield. So, and obviously we'll be previewing that game next week. A couple of points before we leave. Ange Postacoglou has been, he's been brought in as a new Nottingham Forest manager, with Nuno being sacked. What do you make of all that?
I think is it the best possible hire? I'm not sure, because, and I'll mention, the special one, as I think he's eager to come back to the league as well. I think it is a good hire, though. Maybe one of the better ones that you can make, this early into the season. Kind of just a mess right now going on at that club. Everything that we saw with Marinakis coming onto the pitch was that late April, early May, and confronting Nuno. And this kind of
he's that kind of owner, though, isn't he?
He is. Volatile. He is, and it's just kind of all kind of spilled over into the summer. We've seen Nuno's quotes about just them not being ready, and so it felt a little bit inevitable that this was going to happen. In terms of Ange, you can't help but just he's kind of box office a little bit in his own right to Mourinho, like I mentioned, and so I think it's a good fit for him. He's coming off of winning the Europa League with Spurs.
Yeah.
We know. We talked about a Slot versus Klopp preseason. I'm just wondering, how things are going to change. That's the one thing is for the players is, it's going to be very structured. And I know Nuno is, very similar with, structure as well, but just, I think Ange he's ruthless as well. I've heard many, Harry Kane talked about it before. And when he was there briefly, James Maddison has talked about how just, a lot of the meetings are just very, straight to the point with him. He's more of a coach rather than a player's coach. So I'm curious to see how that'll all pan out. But I think it's a good hire. That's the best one they could have maybe made.
It's certainly exciting for the Premier League, right? Mm-hmm. To have Postacoglou there, and just thinking of Forest just going full out attack, and
that's going to be fun.
Ending up 17th in the league, but winning a trophy. So I don't know whether Forest fans would. I'm sure they'd be happy with that.
Yeah.
But I agree with the Mourinho shout. I just thought that him with the Forest owner, it just would have been just so funny. It would have been brilliant to watch. Yeah,
it's gonna be a fun year.
But we'll see if Mourinho makes it back to the Premier League. And then we've had breaking news today that Chelsea have been charged by the FA, by the English FA, on 74 breaches of they've breached some kind of financial regulations around, I think it was player signings and agents, but it's Manchester City and Chelsea who are in the crosshairs with the authorities. Manchester City's 115 charges just seems to, I don't know what's going on with that. And now Chelsea, looks like they've breached all these rules and regulations. Any surprise that it's those two clubs?
No, and when Todd Bowley came in and there's all these transfers that were going through and all the contracts, I guess I would say the 6, 7, 8,
15-year contracts.
Yeah, just the length of these contracts, and just talking about how the fees are spread over, and the agent fees and all these fees that are going to be spread over their contracts. It didn't feel right, and it just kind of kept going for the next 2-3 years. And we were talking about it pre-recording when you broke this to me. It's just, are we really surprised? That's
but apparently these breaches were under the Abramovich era.
which also is no surprise either because
it's from 2009 to 2022.
There's some pretty notable signings in that time frame too.
I think Eden Hazard is one of them.
Costa.
Samuel Eto'o is one of them. Yeah, Oscar. Yeah, so there's quite a few.
Many
that they're going to be looking into. And I mean, apparently, I've just seen some of the news on the BBC saying that Chelsea have been very, very cooperative. So I don't know whether that will kind of mitigate any kind of punishment from the FA, but we'll see what happens. But hopefully next season both Man City and Chelsea are in the Championship. But
League One,
League One. We'll see how it goes. But that is all for today. You've been listening to the Daily Liverpool podcast brought to you by the Global Sports Podcast Network. We'll be back on Monday to bring you all the latest news and obviously a review of the game against Burnley. And then we'll be heading into the preview shows for the return of the Champions League against Atletico Madrid. For myself and Irby, we'll see you soon.